this is your first time, my name is Tanisha and I am your coordinator for Policy Manthan. So before we begin, I hope I am audible and like you can see me as well. Please just confirm.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you, Muskan. All right, guys. So the topic for our today's policy manthan is, can education unlock civic responsibility? Now, before we begin and I hand off the baton to you guys, let's just dive in what civic responsibility really is so we can set the ground and get this started. So, civic responsibility basically goes beyond the rights that are given to the citizens of a country. So, these are basically voluntary actions based on supporting your community. So, it could even be like voting, paying your taxes, or it could also be like you're supposed to be respectful towards others, maintaining cleanliness, and there is a culture in other developed nations where civic responsibility is something that keeps them standing out from countries where there is a policy gap in when it comes to in terms of implementing the policies. So there is a correlation between having civic responsibility in citizens and the actual implementation of policies. If you'll notice, you'll realize that in countries where people are more civic minded, there is less corruption, there is more implementation, and there is more mindfulness towards everyone, and they are more responsible towards their duties as well. In countries such as Germany or anywhere in EU countries, you'll realize that even honking is considered rude. And whereas in countries like India, honking is like breathing. So, unnecessary honking, by the way. So, that is something that makes you think that why is a country like India and other several countries, of course, why is civic responsibility missing? And can that gap that is present today in our countries and several other countries be achieved through education? So, with that note, with that question, and with that initiative, I will be passing it on to you guys. So, I will reiterate the rules that we had the last time. So, please raise your hands. We'll form a queue and I will be calling out your name. I will be keeping a timer of 3 minutes. If you go beyond the 3 minute mark, I will text in the chat box. And yeah, that is how we will be beginning. And then we'll having a short discussion after everyone is done. And best of luck, everyone. So we already see a lot of hands raised. So, Gayatri, would you wish to start us off?
Yes, why not? I hope I'm audible to you all.
Yes.
So our topic is civic responsibility, which is a very important topic to talk about. We often hear that Indians lack civil sense, but when we say it when someone jumps a queue or throws garbage on road, break traffic rules, or vandalizes public property, and what all we do is just move on. That is the truth. We move on because a lot of people do this. But today question is not whether civic responsibility is missing. It is whether education can unlock it. My honest answer is yes. Education can unlock civic responsibility, but only if we redefine what we mean by education. If education is limited to marks, degrees, or competitive exams, then definitely education will not do anything to increase or do better in civic responsibility. If a person can be highly educated and still litter, bribe, bully, vandalize public uh, uh, places, or break rule without any regret, we see this every day. According to the recent literacy rate, 80% of Indians above 7+ age group are educated. Educated in the sense they can read and write. They're literate. But education means education is about awareness, empathy, accountability, and participation, then it becomes a powerful tool. Civic responsibility is not a rocket science. It is a very simple thing: following traffic rule, respecting public places, voting consciously, questioning authority when no one is looking at us or saying us to do it. Um, but however, education alone is not enough. Education must be supported by good examples. When children see their parents or leaders breaking rule, corrupting, bribing the officials, bad behavior going unpublished, unpunished, then it is all waste. Education loses its powers. Civic responsibility thrives when knowledge and roles model work together. Uh, but only when education goes beyond textbooks, beyond exams, and enters everyday life. Um, that's it. I guess the time limit has been done.
Thank you so much, Gayatri. I think it is to be noted what Gayatri said, that we are supposed to redefine education altogether instead of what we've just been discussing for so long. That is just like studying for exams, and then like that's it. That's not what education is. And also to teach children at a very young age the importance of ideal actions and the duties. Thank you, Gayatri. And next we have Shambhavi. Would you like to begin?
Yes, ma'am. I'm visiting on.
Yeah, you are. Best of luck. Thank you.
So, good evening, everyone. This is Shamla Chaturvedi, and I'll keep this very simple. Most of us have studied civics in school, mandatory till 10th class, and but if we know it was enough, then our everyday public behavior would have been looking different. So the real issue isn't lack of education; it is whether we adopt that education what was taught in our class in real life. When we hear of civic responsibility, we think of very fancy or big things like election, protest, expression of speech, all that. But civic responsibility begins with small moments like not littering on the road, not scribbling on the desk. We have all scribbled at one point in our life that we have scribbled on a school desk. So that also comes under civic responsibility, and not damaging private property, following rules. So I take a very common example that I mentioned. We all have scribbled on a desk, thinking it is harmless. What will happen if we scribble on the desk? But we have to remember the fact that if you study in a government school, it's the public property of the taxpayers, and if you study in a private school, it is the property of all the parents who are paying the money for the school fees, and it's not it is not your private property that you can harm it. So that feeling should come that it belongs to the public, and you have the ownership of that. So education can definitely bring civic responsibility. I agree with Gayatri. It moves beyond the textbooks, beyond exams, beyond memorization. We all study civics. We write it exams and then we forget it next. But we have to remember that it is in the everyday life that we should follow civic responsibility. So if that behavior feels normal in school, like sibling death, then it moves forward uh, big behaviors that affect our civic life. And it doesn't mean not. I just saw a video where a girl was filming a reel and someone was walking behind her. So she said, India lacks civic responsibility, but that is not civic responsibility if you if you interact or interrupt the video, that is not. It begins with not littering on the road to following the rules and voting in the election. So I think education can definitely bring civic responsibility if it beyond moves beyond books and becomes experiential, like NEP 2020 suggests. So the implementation is very important. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Shambhavi. I think it is to be noted that even like the smallest of your actions can signify a lot of underlying behaviors. I personally, and this might sound a bit braggy, but I personally never litter because it's very, very easy to not litter. You have something, just keep it with yourself, find a dustbin and throw it there. It's that simple. Um, Okay, Mugda, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, please
Okay.
go ahead. Best of luck.
Good evening. I hope everybody is doing well. And I agree with all the previous addresses, and I would like to add my own here. Uh, I bring in a lot of perspective from what I have learned in my coursework. So I'll make you look at that first. Like Gayatri mentioned, we are almost at 81% literacy today. We were at 12% when we got freedom. Today, we have more graduates, we have more schools, more awareness campaigns than ever. But recently, in 2025, India Today conducted a survey on gross domestic behavior, which which spanned across 21 states and one union territory. And the major, or rather, the key finding of the survey was that Indians do clearly understand that there's a civic responsibility that's important. There's this persistent gap between knowing what's right and actually doing it. So, then the perhaps becomes is, can education unlock civic responsibility? I would like to take you to behaviors. When you can or follow one benefits the effort, like the
Mugdha,
goods.
I'm sorry to
Most
interrupt you.
important characteristics of public goods.
Yeah, it's all right if you can like just turn off your video
Yes.
because your the audio is buffering. So please like turn off your video and then you
Oh,
can speak. Yeah.
is it better now? Okay. So sorry about that. Uh, yeah. So I was talking about public goods, and public goods then eventually become non-rivalrous and non-excludable in nature. So the problem is that contributing will cost you personally, but there are benefits that eventually get end up getting shared by everyone. So even when education will successfully teach you that littering is harmful, queue jumping is wrong, it doesn't change the basic calculation. You can know that civic behavior matters, but also know that you will benefit from others being civic, whether you pitch in or not. So education will fix the knowledge problem, but it won't fix the incentive problem. After Swachh Bharat, I think 100 million toilets were built, but a 2018 survey shows that nearly 44% of the rural population still practices open defecation. Eastern Railway collected 32 lakh in just 3 months from littering and spitting fines at Kolkata stations between January and March 2025. Now, these aren't uneducated people. Look at the gated communities in metropolitan cities. Educated residents will keep their compounds spotless, but show way less concern for public spaces right outside their gates. So, this is where the relationship between education and the systems around it gets interesting. Education seems to work best when it's backed up by structures that actually reinforce what's being taught. Think about how the same person will follow rules religiously at an airport, but casually break them in street traffic. It's not that they suddenly forgot their education, it's the environment that's different. And this is where smart system design helps. When we had Swachh Sarvekshans, when Swachh Sarvekshan started ranking cities publicly, Indore went from unremarkable to winning almost 8 times in a row as India's cleanest city. Education was there. What changed was a system that made civic effort visible and worth it. Stockholm's example, they had an approach towards speeding that they did not just end up fining people, they put rule followers into a lottery funded by the fines from violators. Speeding dropped a whopping 22%. So, this brings us to our central question. Can education unlock responsibility? Yes, but there is a catch. How well education works depends massively on the context it's operating in. And we also need to we need education that creates civic consciousness, not just civic knowledge.
All right, Mugdha, I think that was
And
amazing.
for India, the challenge isn't about what we teach or how we teach it. Oh, okay.
Sorry, you can go ahead. I just thought you were finished. There was a pause. You can go ahead.
No, no, just one line. Sorry. Okay. So it really isn't about what we teach or how we teach it, but it's also about education having formal lessons, but they which is competing with pretty powerful contrary messages. Unfortunately, education doesn't exist in a bubble. It's constantly bumping up against real world experience. So we need systems where civic contribution feels visible, individualized, valued, and personally meaningful, not because education is lacking somewhere, but because changing behavior around collective goods just needs both the motivation and the structure. We need both working together hand in hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mugdha. I think you summed up in a very holistic manner. So you first addressed how there is a gap between being aware and actually action. And then you talked about how we can actually incentivize people and even go beyond that and understand why is there a lack of it when it comes to in terms of action. And yes, education might not be like the only approach, and we might need a multifaceted approach for this. So thank you. And Akshit, are you ready? If you're ready, you can go ahead.
Yes. So good evening, everyone. So as today's topic is, can education unlock everyday civic responsibility? So the core focus is education unlocking responsibility, and I'll say the answer is no. Because let's be honest, India is not lacking education. What India is lacking is a behavior.
Akshit, I'm sorry. I think your video and your audio is paused.
Yeah. Excuse me. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Excuse me. So sorry, Bhaiya came like they wanted to check the room. Sorry.
Oh,
Should
it's
I
okay.
continue?
Yeah, I mean, is there a internet connection problem on your end?
Yes, I guess I heard it was stuttering, so I can turn off my video.
Yeah, and that reminds me, everyone, if you're not speaking, that does not mean that you can have your cameras off. You're supposed to keep this interactive. You're supposed to support your fellow interns as well. So please keep your cameras on and support them. And Akshit, yeah, please resume and you can turn off your camera. It's okay.
Okay. So I guess I'll pick up from that we are lacking more of behavioral structural changes instead of education, because India has above 80% of literacy rate. And let's be honest, like cities like I currently am residing in Delhi, uh, and I live in Himachal Pradesh. I'm in Delhi pursuing my studies. Himachal is cleaner than Delhi. Why? Well, government initiatives is thing, but more it comes to civic sense. And why is that? It's very clear that Delhi is more literate than any other state. It's the most developed state in India, we can say. But Delhi, uh, it literally has trash mountains. It's littered everywhere around. It's because of the uncivil things we do. I see people littering around campus areas. I won't even talk about the general areas. Like even in our colleges, people litter everywhere around. They are not mindful of other people. They want their convenience. They can't keep that packet or that coffee mug, coffee cup with themselves for 5 seconds, walk to a dustbin and throw it in. They can't do that because they are not mindful of other people. And sometimes we had civic responsibility discussion in our classrooms, and our teachers pointed out a very major fact. It is also because of India's history. Indians have been ruled all their life, so that's why they have a instinct to rebel, whether it was the Britishers or the Mughals or the earlier people. That's what my teachers have pointed out. It also plays a critical role. History plays a very critical role. Whereas countries like Europe, if they didn't follow rules, they would be executed. So there was a very strong reason for them to follow rules. So that's why they're, and also after Reformation, Renaissance, they claimed it. Whereas India, it just sort of got into it. So it also has a very interesting historical perspective, and I couldn't find many core like documents or research article on this, but yeah, this is just something out of my discussion questions with my professors about history playing a major role in civic sense, because our schools teach us definitions of democracy, rights, duties, constitution, etc., etc. Civic sense is not about definitions, it's about how you behave when nobody is watching. Do you stand in line? Do you break the queues? Do you keep your street clean? Do you respect public property? Or unlike that, you just carve your names in some historical monuments? We see that happening every day. We stick chewing gums on tables and desks. And those people are educated people. Some of them have done their BA, some of them are 12th class, some of them have done their PhD too. It doesn't matter. The message is clear: do nothing will happen. If there were some severe consequences, they would come in line straight away. It's not an individual issue, it's an individual issue and a system issue. City also has overflowing dustbins, broken footpaths, public toilets which are used irresponsibly. If you look at a dustbin, everything is littered around, not just inside the dustbin but outside the dustbin. It's not a dustbin, it's a garbage collection area, and people have to walk through it. I walk to my college every day from, and there's a very big garbage area. Like you have to hold in your breath for 20 seconds and just run through that area. So yeah, if there is strict enforcement, I think it could definitely lead to better outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshit. I think that was a very fresh perspective and take on how we actually require behavioral and structural changes. And I think it's very interesting to think that there might not be any correlation between education and having real civic sense. Because in a country like Delhi, yes, of course, like most of the people are educated, and educated people do litter. So where is the problem, right? Where is the gap? And maybe if Akshit is right, we do need more consequences, so there is implementation, so people can actually, if not incentivized, but coerced into learning civic responsibility as well. So next we have Muskan. Are you ready, Muskan?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'll start the timer. Best of luck.
Good evening, everyone. So, education can play a role in shaping civic responsibility, but I don't think so. It is sufficient on its own. We talk a lot about civic duties, especially big civic duties such as voting, protesting, constitutional values. But civic responsibility actually begins with the smallest things. It is about everyday actions. For example, whether we throw a used water bottle on a road or we put it in a dustbin, whether we respect the public spaces or whether we follow the basic rules when no one is watching us. And that's where education falls short. Education can give us knowledge, rules, and a certain level of awareness. But awareness doesn't only come from the classroom. I have seen many people who are highly educated but lack civic sense, while at the same time, there are so many educated and privileged people who I have seen so many uh, not highly educated people who have higher civic sense, while at the same time I've seen so many educated and privileged people who lack civic sense. For example, a few days ago recently I came across this video where a guy casually threw a Starbucks coffee cup on a metro station platform, and it is quite ironical, like he had enough money to buy a Starbucks coffee but doesn't have enough civic sense to know where to dispose it of. And this clearly shows that economic status and education doesn't only mean that a person is going to have enough civic sense. Civic responsibility does depends on many more factors beyond education, such as environment, personal belief, peer influence, social behavior, and the upbringing and the environment. So, uh, these are shaped over time, often beyond the formal education. And this is a simple idea that explains this well. A degree teaches us subjects, but a life teaches us a character. And civic responsibility is more about a character. It is not just about knowing what is right, but choosing to do what is right, especially when no one is watching. So yes, education can unlock everyday civic responsibility at a certain to a certain extent, but the civic responsibility is actually built through lived experiences, social responsibilities, and consistent everyday behavior. So education can support civic responsibility, but it can't replace the character. Thank you.
Thank you, Muskan. I think this is to be noted that other than the fact that there is really no incentive or even punishment for, let's say, not having civic responsibility, but there is also a very normalized behavior when it comes to littering, because like everybody litters, so it's fine. Everybody spits, so it's fine. Everybody's rude, so it's fine. One person honks and then the rest of them follow. And I personally think that anytime there is a social situation where you can see that someone has littered, just tell them, like, pick it up and put it in the trash. And I personally enjoy saying that a lot, because nobody can say ki I will not do it, because it's the morally right thing to do. And people want to be right. They think that they are moral. So I would say, like, please don't shy away from, like, giving them peer pressure when it comes to even learning civic responsibility. I think that works. It has worked for me. All right. Next we have Anam. Are you ready?
Right.
All
Good
right.
evening, everyone. I'm audible, right? Okay, yeah. Good evening, everyone. A few days ago, on January 15th, an incident in the Thotla Valluru village in Telangana caught the nation's attention. 11 workers were subjected to brutal public humiliation, not because of their actions, but because of their social attributes. Now, whenever we encounter such deep rooted discrimination, we have to look very closely at our institutions. We often speak of education as a transformative tool, but events like these still suggest a very significant gap between the lessons taught in our classrooms and the reality of our streets. It raises a very critical question, so to say. How do we move education from a purely academic exercise to a foundation of a genuine civic responsibility? Civic responsibility, prima facie, is often viewed as a set of very grand, duties and roles like voting or following the law. But in practice, it is something much more personal and immediate. It is the everyday commitment to uphold the dignity of those around us. Now, for us as young professionals and educators, this means active empathy, recognizing that every individual, regardless of their job or social status, is a key stakeholder in our society. And second is institutional accountability, having the courage to speak up whenever we see any sort of systemic discrimination, be it bullying in a school or discriminatory policy in any office, anything. And furthermore, education is the only mechanism that can actually like dismantle these social prejudices. But it must also go beyond the term literacy. It must provide us with the critical thinking skills to question why certain social inequalities still persist. It must offer social justice training to help us navigate a diverse society with respect. And as I've seen with my work in government schools, it must prove that every student, no matter their starting line, has a right to a very safe and promising future. To put it plainly, education provides us with the tools for change, but it is actually the civic responsibility to use them to initiate the change. Now, in conclusion, the success of a policy like NEP 20 won't be measured by the national GDP or the corporate placement rates, so to say. It will be measured by the bottom 10%. It will be measured by the safety of a child traveling to school or the professional dignity which is afforded to everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anam. And I'm really glad that you brought up like the social values that are also linked with civic responsibility as well. Given that if in reality, had there been more civic responsibility, it's possible that certain crimes, certain hate crimes, or certain discrimination towards disadvantaged groups would have been avoided. And yes, education can only be the answer if it's a little more multifaceted, more immediate, more practical in terms of its implementation as well. So next we have Atharv. Are you ready? Also, sorry, I'm sorry. Madhuri, if you can hear me, if you're ready, you can go ahead. It's fine. Madhuri, are you there? Okay, Atharv, I think you can go ahead. She can go after you.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Here you are.
Yeah. Audible?
Yeah, you're ready.
Yeah. So sorry for the disturbance.
Yeah, not an issue. As long as you're here and as long as you're doing this, it's absolutely fine. I'll start the timer. Best of luck.
Yeah. Okay. So I would like to stand in favor of education because I believe that education, civic sense can be imbibed in individuals through education. Education is more than classroom learning because when we spend a certain number of hours with people, with peers who are accustomed to, basic etiquette, then we are sure to take certain things from them. We adapt we imitate their actions, their behavior, and in schools and colleges we spend more than 5 to 6 hours. And for example, if my friend, if he or she is organized, I will be inspired to do the same. you know and then that certainly impacts this that has some correlation with the civic sense also. Education, it helps in differentiating right and wrong. The problem in India is that people don't question things. They radically believe that okay, if we follow the crowd. We have this mentality. If things are, if many people are doing certain things, then it is correct. But we need to teach students, teach the young minds to question things. And this should be started in a very young age because I believe there is a psychological pattern also. Uh, when I say psychologically, I believe that if we ask a child, अगर मैं एक बच्चे से कहूँ कि गंदगी क्यों करी, इसे उठाओ एंड कूड़े में डालो, ठीक है, वो थोड़ा सा डरेगा भी अगर उसे डांट के बोले, अगर समझाएंगे देन ही विल अंडरस्टैंड. बट अगर वही एक अडल्ट को हम बोले, ही विल गेट ऑफेंडेड. क्यों? क्योंकि सिर्फ हैबिट, उसकी हैबिट नहीं है. वी डोंट क्वेश्चन थिंग्स. We turn it into norm. If people are doing it, it is correct. So majority को follow करना, we have to stop blindly following people and start questioning it. And question करना we will learn from education only. Other point is, I believe that people cite religious sentiments as excuse for littering in rivers, in polluting, you know, playing with the nature. They think that they can do it because their religion and their culture allows it. We need to teach students to question that. Just because people have been doing it for long, it is not correct. So that again comes from the education. When we will start reading about our history, about our practices, about a long culture that has been left behind, and we have started dogmatically following things, that we will start, keeping it separate. Then we will start assessing what is correct, what is ethically and civically right. And another point that I would like to add, that law enforcement in India is little weak. That should be stringent. You need certain accountability from the citizens as well. Because I feel that people in India take pride in being uncivilized. This they are so okay with it. If you go on Instagram, you'll find the reels of people being unhygienic, and they are very proud about it. We need to change that mentality also. We need certain law enforcement on that. So I cannot corner this कि law enforcement जरूरी नहीं है, सिर्फ education से काम हो जाएगा. That's not a correct way to look at it. So again, foreign countries they have developed economic conditions. So economy also helps a lot because, for example, if I say, अगर आप किसी luxury hotel में जा रहे हो, you will start behaving polite. So people are aware about their responsibility. So that's what we require them कि आप accountable हो अपने actions के लिए. We need to make them more responsible, and that comes from the law enforcement.
My point remains same. Education can help aware citizens. It makes them more responsible and disciplined, and this should start from a very young age. If we start doing this in a very young age, they will be habituated, and then they will follow it as a normal routine. Otherwise, we will start imposing laws on adults, and they will be reluctant to follow it. Yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuri. There is something that I would like to say. I think it's very interesting to note how civic sense for Madhuri is etiquettes and like social responsibility, while for let's say somebody else it might just be more towards action and implementation. And yes, what Madhuri said, etiquettes or social behavior can be learned from, let's say, peers or at a school or at a social function or even through Instagram, and that might even be negative, but it can also be positive as well. All right, so next we have Athar. If you're ready, I don't think you're audible. Um, I don't think so. Sorry. Yeah, you're not audible. You could try rejoining if that helps. We'll have to start with Aparna though. Wait, let's just wait for 10 seconds if it can be resolved. No, you're not audible. Okay. If it's possible, you could try from another device, but we'll have to move on with Aparna, and you can go ahead next and maybe try with a different device if that helps. All right. Aparna, are you ready?
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Can you? Yeah, there you are.
Can you guys see me? I don't think I can't see myself in the screen, so I hope you guys can see me.
Yeah, Zoom does that. We can see you. If you're ready, I can start the celebration.
Sure.
Yeah, okay,
So,
perfect.
good morning, everyone. I mean, my bad. Good evening, everyone. So, let's first of all picture a busy street in Bombay. Trash all over, people crossing the road anyways, anywhere, and cars honking non-stop. Or the Yamuna River in Delhi, choked with plastic and foam. As reports shows, Delhi dumps around 1,200 tons of plastic daily, as much of it flowing into the river. This is India, full of lives, but short on basics civic sense, like lining up, keeping places clean, or following traffic rules. Can education fix this? See, education is more than books. It builds awareness and care for others. Let's look at Singapore. It was a mess like us once. Launching the Keep Singapore Clean in 1968, now it's super clean. Why? Schools teach kids from a young age to respect public spaces at their home, with students cleaning classrooms and corridors since 2014. In India, Swachh Bharat has kids cleaning through schools, boosting waste collection to around 97% of in many areas. But here's what I really think. Education opens the door to good habits, but it needs help to push it fully. We learn duties in Article 51A of our Constitution, as per as the official text, including to protect the environment under 51AG and developing scientific temper under 51AJ. Yet, even educated people spit on walls or pay for bribes. Why? Old habits, poverty, and weak rules hold us back. Yes, education can spark change if we make it better. Add real life lessons, clean up days that counts for marks, fake traffic games, or online rules for phones. Imagine schools in Delhi running Yamuna Petrol, a program where students map pollution and fix it, or Mumbai colleges hosting a no honk challenges with prizes. Tie it to exams. Let civic projects boost your GPA. Pair this with strict fines for littering, like indoor model, like one of my friends just told. Because in rupees, for rupees 10, oh my bad, rupees 100 for spitting and up to rupees 500 for dumping, fining over 3,600 people in a month alone, as per as the Times of India report, which makes it India's cleanest city for years. See, education is not a magic fix, but it's our top tool. Don't just learn civics, live it. Start today. Pick up that wrapper. Wait your turn in lines. Honor the rules. Let's unlock the civic sense now for a cleaner and a prouder India. Thank you.
You ended right on time. Thank you, Parna. I think it is a really good thing that you actually gave us an example of where civic sense was actually implemented in terms of a policy in a country like Singapore, and something that we can learn and we can, of course, inculcate those values as well. Let's check in with Adhar. Can you try again?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're beautiful. All right. Uh,
I for
yeah, if you're ready, I'll start the timer. Best of luck.
Yeah, I'm ready. Okay, so civic sense, it is actually a very important aspect in our society nowadays, as many people are talking about it. And it actually, according to me, this term civic sense, it should instill a sense of like social responsibility among the people. So I would like to start with a story. During 1960s, the Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, he visited India, specifically Kolkata, and he observed that the infrastructure in Kolkata was actually so mesmerizing. It was so clean, and the rules actually at that time were followed so evenly that he planned that Singapore should be like India. And for like after this, he implemented the Singaporean developmental plan from 1965 to 70. And now Singapore is known as one of the richest countries in the world. Whereas India, it may lack in some aspects as compared to Singapore, but I don't think it is that much improved from that time. So actually, civic sense in our country, it is like correlated with breaking of laws. And this traces its roots back to British India. Because at that time, the people thought that true freedom lies when they break rules. And that mindset is followed till now. Be it written, yahan thukna mana hai, and be it for breaking the rules or be it uncivilized behavior in and outside our territory, or be it littering in public places. I think that education would not play a prominent role in this, but psychology would. And there was a test by Albert Bandura. He was a Canadian psychologist on this. So basically, the experiment gave a doll to some set of adults, and they were asked to perform violence on that doll. And the children, they were asked to watch them as they perform that violence. And when the children were given that doll without any instructions, they did the same. So basically, in adulthood too, we do the same thing. We see people litter outside the dustbin, we throw it there itself. We see people driving on the wrong side, we do that too. So I don't think that illiteracy can be correlated with uncivilized behavior, because I've seen educated people do all this too. So, there can be two things which can be done for this. First, at the educational level, and second, at the policy level. So, at the educational level, first we can copy what Japan does. It actually wires the children to clean their premises where they study, and they do that outside the space where they study too. They do that thing in their country too. And at the policy,
Athar, we lost audio again.
uh,
No, it's back now.
am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah. So basically,
Policy level.
we should implement stricter punishments and not stricter laws, because the people would break the law regardless of how stricter it may be. But the punishment would lead to one thing, that they would not perform that action again. So I think that to conclude this, I would say that civic sense, it should not come from outside; it should come from within. As when it will come from within, that is the only time when a specific individual, he will be developed, and his actions would lead our nation to be developed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Athar. I think that was a very fun anecdote, and how ironic it is that, Singapore is where they are now because like some leader took inspiration from India's Kolkata, and here we are today still talking about the very same issues. And yeah, I think the fact that, if we teach, like we've discussed earlier as well, like if we teach children at a very young age what is right, what is not, it's easier because they're more vulnerable and they're more prone to understanding and following certain habits that they'll be set in. All right, so next we have Vanchika. Please go ahead. Also, guys, keep on raising your hand simultaneously, and please don't leave because I have a question for everyone here. So yeah, I'll lead everyone for that. And wait, where did Vanchika go? Oh, there you are.
Right.
Yeah, all right. If you're ready, Vanchika, I'll start the timer.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Should I start? Am I audible? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We often talk about development and growth, but no country can truly develop without civic sense. And in India, this is where education can play a major role. When we hear the term civic sense, we usually think it means not littering or standing in queues and following traffic rules. That's true. But the real issue is much deeper. It is about the mindset. Um, and it is deeper than habits. It's actually the mindset. It's about whether we see our country as our responsibility or someone else's problem. Many of us, not many of us, most of the people treat public spaces like roads, buses, parks, etc., as government's property and not as something that belongs to all of us or as national shared assets. The data shows this very clearly. India spends over 1,400 crores every year on cleanliness, yet more than 60% of the littering happens. This clearly proves that we do not lack facilities, but it's about responsibility. India also accounts around 11% of the global road accidents, yeah, despite having only about 3% of world's vehicles. This shows that it's not about roads are bad. It's about we people do not follow the rules or break the rules. We have laws, fines, police, and cameras. Still, behavior doesn't change much. That's because discipline created by fears work when someone is watching. Real civic sense exists when everyone follow rules because they believe it is the right thing to do. If we look at Japan, the difference becomes much clearer. There are hardly any public dustbins, yet streets are clean. People carry their waste home. In school, students are taught to clean their classrooms daily. It's a part of their education. It's not enforced through punishment. They are taught that public spaces belong to everyone and must be respected. This shows one simple truth that civic sense is cultivated, not enforced. And in India, education focuses heavily on exams, degrees, but not enough on real life responsibility. Education can unlock civic sense only when students practice accountability, not just read about values in textbooks. To conclude, India doesn't lack talent or intelligence. What we lack is collective responsibility, and it cannot be imposed. Maybe it can be imposed by laws, but I think it has to build through education, because a truly developed country is where citizens do the right thing even when no one is watching. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anshika. I think that was very um, insightful, given that, how some people here thought that, having punishments as more strict can actually lead to learning civic sense, while you believe that it's possible that not just punishment should be like the fear of punishment should not be hanging over their head for them to actually learn something that is moral, but it should come from within. And I'm glad that you brought up the point of public goods, because I was wondering when one of you will. And there is this theory that, why people don't respect public goods, even though we are the ones, the people who pay taxes are the ones who are responsible for whatever public services that we get, and especially like the public goods that we, are there for our own convenience. It's because when a person does not really pay taxes, they don't really have a foot in the game, and they don't really think that they can hold the government responsible. Say we have poor roads, but people complain, but they don't really expect answers because they have not paid taxes. And you will be shocked to realize that only 3 to 6% people in India pay taxes. The rest of the population does not pay taxes. So they don't hold the government responsible. And so they think that, public goods, it's not like, they are responsible for it, or even the government is responsible for it. So it's a whole cycle. And people who actually are vigilant and people who have actually paid their taxes can only feel like they're losing because they have a foot in the game. So that's something to think about. Next, we have Vanshika. Vanshika, are you ready?
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible, but not visible.
Wait a second. Let me see. Is there any internet issue or not? Am I visible now?
Yeah, you're visible.
Good evening, everyone. So I would like to first say that yes, education is very important in everyone's life, and it should be made equal within society, which is obviously not made equal in our country. But if I'm being very honest, like I think most of us would also agree on this take of mine that the education which is being imparted to the individuals in our country is mostly theoretical. There is almost no practical exposure which is given to us on how the society actually works, like outside of the textbooks which we are always being made to go through. Like for example, if we talk about the civic responsibility, it not only includes cleanliness but also tax paying. But in our country, as ma'am said too, tax evasion has been a very major issue from a very long time. Most of the people usually showcase their fake incomes just to not pay taxes, and even the businessmen, they do certain transactions only in cash so that they don't have to pay taxes, which is obviously against the laws. Like we are living in the country, so you are also truly responsible to promote and actually provide something to the country if you want responsibilities to be done and your expectations to be fulfilled by the government. And for the cleanliness part, I will just say that like if we compare, like people always give the example of high population. Like if we see China, like it is also the second largest population in the whole world, but the cleanliness there is much better as compared to India. Well, the major difference which can be seen is that in China, people actually take this as their own responsibility, as well as expect the government to do for it something for it, like stricter policies, better infrastructure. But in India, people expect that this is the responsibility of the government only, which obviously doesn't provide any solution. People throw garbages everywhere, and when some foreign YouTuber, I shouldn't be saying this, but when some foreign YouTuber actually shows the reality on YouTube, like for views or whatever, something to like tarnish the image of our country, but they always write, some Indians are, I'm ashamed as an Indian, this is what is happening. Like, you should actually do something for it, right? You can also do something to make the country cleaner. Like, you can't expect everything to be done by the government, right? So I will just say education is important, but it should be enhanced in a good way so that people actually learn from it. Like, we can learn from Japan, some other developed countries like Singapore. And all I can say is that education is important, but people responsibility and behavior towards society is also very much important. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshika. I think it's great that you brought up like the attitude of citizens and like the government towards um something that is because if you realize that civic sense in reality it cannot really be seen. Like you cannot like point and say ki, like, hey, there's civic sense and hey, this is how much it's progressed over the years. It's not quantifiable in data, but it's more of it's more qualitative in nature, and can only be felt and it can only be learned. And yes, when it comes to in terms of learning it, I feel like what Anshika mentioned as well, you're supposed to create that change in yourselves. And I really think that if everyone here feels that they will not litter, and they will also kind of like hold other people accountable for it as well, in just in terms of like like saying that like just like pick up your trash, like that's it. And trust me, I've done that to strangers as well, and they cannot say no because they know it's the right thing to do. They just think that nobody cares, nobody is watching. So that is how it's like a herd mentality or something. um so yeah, that's something fun to think about, and something that can be more practical and that can be practiced in terms of on a personal level as well. So next we have Tulsi. And anyone, so like the rest of you, whoever is left, like please raise your hand. So I'm aware, like, well, whoever is like left. And before we go on, I don't want people to like leave before I had to ask this question. Guys, so we talked about, so basically at Sakali school, what we are doing is that we are talking about policies, assessing policies through the lens of education, through the lens of like well school, because like that is our theme. So what I want from you guys is in our, so whoever wasn't here for like the first policy month, and basically this is a discourse. This is a discourse for certain topics through the lens of education. We started with AI. We are here talking about civic sense. I personally um love this topic because I've always wondered, why is there not more civic responsibility in India? I mean, it's high time. We have like the fourth highest largest economy, and yet we are still talking about the very basic things, and it's embarrassing at this point, guys. So I want you guys to not now, but like please text me personally. Let me know what you think, like where are like the certain fields where you're more enthusiastic in talking about, because this is the discourse. So I would want you guys to tell me your opinions, like say you want to talk about this, like you want us to create a platform where these are the topics that you would like to be discussed about, because I think everybody here would agree, and I am saying this from a first hand experience. I know more about AI than I did before because of Policy Manthan. I know more about civic sense and responsibility I do right now than I did before, because this discourse is actually the practical learning, the social experience, the way you actually learn from social behavior and like social interactions. This is it. So please take this seriously. Thora time low. We'll have our next policy manthan on Friday. But I need to at least give you guys the next topic by the next Tuesday or Wednesday. So take your time today or by tomorrow. I'll drop in a reminder text tomorrow. If you guys have any suggestions, please send it, because this is for you guys and maybe for me as well. But yeah, if you have your foot in the game, you'll hold me responsible, you'll hold yourselves accountable as well. So I feel like a teacher. Okay, anyways. Who did we have next? I'm sorry, I lost the person. Please raise your hands and we'll go ahead. Yeah, Tulsi. Who else is left? Rishika. Okay, Rishika is got it. Sorry. I think wait, Jigyasa, you're left, right? And Sugandhi, yes, I mean, I'm glad you asked this question. It needs to be assessed through the lens of education. So, yeah, that's necessary. So, say we are talking about civic responsibility right now, but it needs to bridge the gap, maybe through education. So, it has to be like relevant to our theme as well. But I'm sure you guys will find a way. Just let me know the topic of your head, and maybe I'll try to adjoin it with the education somehow. So like, don't take the pressure of that, and we'll of course try to accommodate everyone here. So Tulsi, sorry for keeping you waiting. Please go ahead and I'll start the timer. Best of luck.
So, good evening, everyone. Today, I'll be talking about the topic which was given to us. Can education unlock civic responsibility? So, this is a gap we see every day in our society. We live in a country that produces the world's best engineers, doctors, and scientists. We're obsessed with degrees, ranks, and report cards. But we often fail to ask ourselves this question: is our education making us better citizens, or is it just making us better employees? I believe that for India to truly progress, we do not need well educated minds, we need well reformed minds. We need to move beyond the four walls of a classroom to teach our children what it truly means to be a responsible citizen. So there is a lot of gap between the schooling and character in the Indian education system. There is a big difference between being literate and being educated. We see many people with high degrees often littering on roads or just ignoring the traffic lights. This is because our school system just focus on passing exams and not on building characters. Our current system is built on competition. We often teach our children to run faster or to compete against their classmates. While this competition is often good for skills, but it kills responsibility. A reformed mind often looks beyond success. We need to teach children that they are part of a larger community, and we need to teach them that if a person is struggling next to them, it is their responsibility to help them. We need to shift the focus from how can I win to how can we grow together. And I personally believe that empathy should be taught as a core subject in schools. You cannot unlock civic responsibility without empathy. A child might be a genius in maths, but if they cannot feel the pain of a hungry neighbor, or if they cannot empathize with the struggle of a manual laborer, their education is incomplete. We need to educate our children and encourage them to meet people from diverse backgrounds, understand their problems, and think of ways to solve them. Next major problem in India is, which one of the fellow also mentioned, is how we treat our public spaces. Like I agree that public goods are non-rivalrous, and they are often accessible to all. But the way we treat our homes with great care, and the way we treat our country like a garbage, invokes this dilemma. This happens because we do not feel the sense of ownership to our country. Our education must treat our children that to view the local buses, the parks, and the street lights as their own property. We need to teach our children that the public need to teach our children to move of teaching public property as everyone's property and nobody's property. Responsibility starts when a child feels that keeping India clean is as important as keeping their houses clean. One more thing which lacks in Indian education system is the courage to do the right thing. Real education should give the child the courage to speak against the wrongs, whether it is standing against the bullying or whether it is standing against the social evils. A responsible citizen should not stay silent. And the way we value our children excelling in academics, we should equally value values like courage, kindness, and integrity, and our children will naturally strive to live by them. So, concluding it, I would like to say that education is a tool, but how we use that tool depends on our mindset. A sharp mind without a reformed one and without a sense of responsibility is often dangerous. Let us stop focusing only on what our children can get from the world and start trying to inculcate in them what they can give to this country. Only then can education unlock the civic responsibility, and that will build a stronger, kinder, and better India. Right.
Thank you, Tulsi. I think that was very well put. And yes, like the children are so vulnerable that, and they are prone to learning from their environment, and that can be used in a positive way if the environment that they are put in is more positive, and they can learn social values as well, such as, of course, like kindness, empathy, courage, and that was very well put. And yes, we do need to teach our children, because like they are the future of tomorrow. And I believe that everyone here right now is a product of not just education, but of course like the environment that we have been put through. And like, let's say, the this moment right now is also a sort of environment. And I'm hoping, like, um if you had this much capacity for civic sense before, maybe you will have increased the capacity because of the environment that we are creating right now. So yeah, thank you, Tulsi. Kohana, are you ready?
Good evening.
Yeah, you're audible and visible. Please start. Best of luck.
So the question of civic responsibility um, in India is often blamed on citizens because like they do not care or they do not follow the rules. But education alone influencing civic responsibility is partially true because of two major aspects according to me. First is our education system focuses less and less on outcomes. We do study about our fundamental duties, our responsibilities, but we don't bring it into practice. And like Tulsi said about bringing empathy, I also feel like when we disregard our humanity subjects like history, we just ignore the injustice done on people. When we ignore political science, we ignore the caste hierarchy and how it affects us today. Like cleaning sewage is seen as the work of lower caste people. And the second aspect is the lack of enforcement of rules and regulation. When citizens in their daily life see that these governance laws are unevenly implemented, so they feel like they will not be held accountable and they can escape the system. So I feel civic responsibility should be more about integrating both the systems. From education point of view, we should make sure that it is uh, brought into our practice, our habits from an early age by mentoring students, but also enforcing laws, not to create fear, but to know that you will be held accountable. Also, while respecting the our past and what happened and how it affects us today. So, civic responsibility is not just about education, but also about governance and what India faced during its historical past. Thank you.
Thank you, Kahana. And yes, education at a primary level is like really, really significant and more plausible for implementation. And it's ironic. I don't know if you all are aware, but like fundamental duties were added. I'm sorry, that was the timer. But like fundamental duties were added during like the internal emergency. Which is weird given that the circumstances of the emergency were not entirely moral in sense, and that is when fundamental duties came. And did you know like even the origin of fundamental duties, like we took it from like USSR, um, given where they are right now, like the historical roots of how fundamental duties came about is a little twisty in its nature. Anyways, I think we have Sugandhi left, Shivangi and Mimansha. If I am forget, I think like yeah. Also, guys, all right, I'll address it later. Yes, Sugandhi, if you're ready, please go ahead.
Yes, hello. I'm sorry, there will be some noise disturbance. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Uh, can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So first of all, I would like to say that this topic, it was hard for me to talk about because one, this is a very deeply systemic issue that I do not think that can be immediately solved by anything. And two, I really, really found it hard to kind of assess myself as to where I lie in the for or against side of the document. Because though I do agree that education, when it is implemented in a holistic manner as such, can change children in when it is imparted from a very early age, those children will still need someone to look up to, and that someone will be the adults in their life. And these adults are not going to kind of uh, implement the teaching that they are receiving in school level. They won't be able to follow through with it. So I feel like there should be a balance between both, penalty implementation aspect from the law side and also the educational aspect. Like a lot of my peers said many things that opened up my mind. And one thing that really stuck with me was someone said if only laws are imposed, it will be like an external thing and it won't be an internal decision for the humans to like take part in this responsibility, which I agree with. The education should be designed in a way that we see the fellow human being as someone to treat with compassion as an equal, so that we will feel a sense of belonging as a community. And this is essential, but at the same time, I really, really realistically cannot see how it can be implemented in a country like India without proper consequences. So I feel like there should be a balance. And there's another thing that I would like to add. The cultural aspect of it, I feel, is often overlooked. Like we have been talking about Singapore and Japan, and one thing is that in Japan, even though the cleaning duty assigned to students every day has been like inculcated into their system, education system, it is kind of a part of their culture as such. Another thing is that you could like see the news where the Japanese people, after a huge global mass, they cleaned up the entire stadium by themselves. When they were asked why they did so, they said it was atarimae. That means it was just natural. It was organic for them because that is a part and parcel of the culture aspect. When we kind of compare ourselves to other countries to kind of borrow these things from, we will have to look at our cultural differences and how our socioeconomic differences are different, and how well it can kind of be taken and implemented as well. So yeah, basically, I'm still like not sure how much of this can be implemented, and how in how many days it can like be implemented as such, because I feel like this is very hard to quantitatively measure as well. So that's my
Yes, Sugandhi, I think I agree with you because this, especially any sort of social value, it can never be, first of all, quantified, and second of all, it can never be immediate. And I think you do bring up a good point because, well, we can either have consequences for a country like India. Well, of course, because the laws don't really seem to work. People don't really seem to well, follow the laws, much less follow the duties that they're supposed to have without any without any punishment. That seems very unlikely. But it is a good point that you mentioned that if, like, a country like Japan, if they're like their culture has certain values, it's easier for them to function that way. And for us, for a country like India, for it to be sustainable, it needs to be learned and inculcated in the people through the culture itself for it to be more sustainable. And perhaps for like the short term goals, we could have punishments as well. And I think I just realized that you need that there is a cycle.
so sorry, I got disconnected for a minute. Can you please?
Yeah, basically I'm agreeing with you that we do need a better culture which can only be sustainable, and it can only be inculcated slowly because it is a social value. And another thing that I was talking about is that there is a cycle. If you'll realize that when a lot of people here are talking about having punishment, say even a fine, of course, like punishment sounds a little too coercive, but yes, even fines for something to, hold people accountable for their actions. That policy comes through the government, and the government will not be willing to do anything until and unless people hold them responsible. And people themselves don't care, like if you talk about like the majority. So basically we want the government to hold people responsible, and the government will only hold the people responsible if the people hold the government responsible. So you realize where I'm going with this. So it's basically like, a cycle where who will start first, of course, but like of course we have initiatives there, and with time I hope India will progress in a more sustainable manner when it comes to social values as well, and not just like, the quantifiable terms and factors. Next we have Shivangi, and we're left with the Mimansha, correct? So yeah, Shivangi, if you're ready.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. If you're ready,
Okay.
please.
Yeah. Okay. Greetings, everyone. What I believe, firstly, is that if we really want to change, and why we see the disparity between the education and the civic responsibility, is because there's a lot of disparity between home environments and the school environments. At school, and at school, we see that we taught that we shouldn't litter. In fact, a lot of us know theoretically that we shouldn't litter. But then when you go at home, at times in a lot of Indian households, limit ourselves to our personal households. We limit ourselves to our personal spaces, but we don't go beyond that. We don't want to take that social accountability. And to change this, we first of all, if we really want to inculcate the kind of values that countries like Japan, countries like Singapore and US have inculcated in their adults, in their people, is to get the social responsibility uh, in them. And that can only happen when we have a personal level reinforcement. For example, in my college, if you litter around, And if you even keep a cup on, like keep an empty cup on a table, then people do give you looks. People do judge you, and that's give a very that becomes socially uncool. So in India, when social reputation is so much valued, it becomes important that we target this thing for a change in the habits and making people more civically active. Because when you start uh, like targeting this particular aspect of people, it becomes a kind of invisible pressure. It builds a kind of invisible pressure on the people to do the right things. So even if they don't want to throw it on in the dustbin, or they don't want to pick up the trash can that's there on the road, they will take the step because people are judging them on that basis. And for doing this, it cannot alone happen when we give some sort of bring some pedagogical changes in the syllabus. Because few years back, when a biggest example that occurred is that uh, to inculcate the ethical practices amongst the bureaucrats, civil services examination uh, introduced an ethics paper. But we still don't see a lot of ethical practices being adopted by these bureaucrats, because what it remained is that it became very theoretical in nature, and it wasn't really adopted into practices. So to change these kind of things, to bring it to move from theoretical practice to the physical uh, habits, is that we need to target people who actually help uh, building these habits of the kids in the foundational years, which can be done if we target families in particular, the adults in the family in particular, and especially the mothers who are actually helping these kids, and keeping a strict vigilance on these kids to do the right things, to let them for example, a simple example of keeping the environment clean or planting trees. These things can be done when mothers themselves tell these kids, or the adults in the family go on to tell the kids that it's not just our home that needs to be clean, it is our locality in general which needs to be clean. Even in the Northeast, uh, we see that the lot of these habits of cleaning the entire village, keeping the state clean, is something that's inculcated in the foundational years of the kids. And that is what needs to be done. Because until unless we don't change the elders in the family, we can't change the kids, and we can't change the upcoming generations. And all we can then do is think that we can bring punishment, and we can work on enforcement, but that's a very secondary thing, which very an immediate effect, immediate thing that we can do, but that's not the thing which will help us in the long run. In long run, we need to work on a very structural and fundamental basis. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivangi. I think you did point out with the correct dimensions of how there should be social accountability as well. And I loved how you said that, if you're littering, you're uncool. Because I do think that, if someone is littering, they are not cool. And if that helps people, especially people in our peer circle, stop littering. So yeah, like not littering is cool and littering is uncool. So that is a good way to look at it. And certain ways to actually learn civic sense can only be learned with let's say we need social accountability. But what is social accountability without a proper bedrock and foundation of policies? It's like um that would be like a body without a skeleton. Like it needs to have a mass, it needs to have a structure, and it needs to be backed up as well. So yeah, thank you for that. And I think, who are we left with? Mimansha, are you there?
Hi. Yes.
Yeah, just a second. I think everybody else is done, right? Like after Mimansha, we're done. I think so. All right, Mimansha, if you're ready, I'll start the timer.
Yeah, I guess being the last person, all my points are covered. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think that it is education can bring about changes, and it should. Um, like most of them said, it can, and also education. See, the things we learn in school, the theoretical things that are passed down to us, it has very less impact on us, right, the students. So it's about how school encompasses all that into practical use. For example, in my school, we used to have cleaning day after days, divided into houses. We used to have school cleaning divided into according to classes. So these things, it brings about accountability. It brings about a lot of responsibility also. So yeah, and just hold on. I'm- Hello. Yes, and like most of them talked about peers, right? So I think peers play a very important role. Again, so I'll bring about my example of my friends. So usually, when we see someone litter, we just look at each other. We're like, nope. And then even so that happens. So those kind of environment and the environment that we are brought in, because I guess that in us comes from our school itself, because you know how our school kind of molded us into thinking that these are not cool stuff. Like you have to be show responsibility. And also education sharpens our minds for civic action, I feel. So basically in schools you learn about the policies, the government actions, or your rights and your responsibilities. So these are the things you learn about, and how you can show up for your country overall by making small changes as a citizen. So yeah, I think education does, but there's also a big. I agree to the people who were not for the topic, because I recently was having this conversation with one of my batchmates that how India is, like the education system is progressively growing, but also the civic sense keeps going backward. Like not just India, now you see people, Indian citizens, uh, painting the town red in all the other foreign countries as well. So it's not just India anymore. So it is actually kind of questionable, but also I think because till now, um, civic sense has been coming in a lot of theoretical terms only. So in school only, from the very basis, it has to start very practically. Then I feel a lot can improve because it instills a lot of civic sense in the students as well. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mamansha. Right on time. I think we're done with everyone now. And I think it's time we have like the closing remarks. So, yeah, I did Jigyasha, I'm so sorry. You left, right?
Yes, I'm called. I was traveling, so my network connection was not so proper. I could not
Yeah,
reply.
yeah, I just saw you. Like, I think you had left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
many times.
please go ahead. Sorry. Please go ahead.
So good evening, everyone. My topic is, can education unlock civic sense? So, as India is a democratic country, and every individual has their own way of living, and not every, but some people of this country also hold some unethical habits due to which we struggle. Uh, for example, they litter the street or disregard the traffic rules or damage public property, and also uh, there is limited community participation. So these examples causes some gaps in our civic consciousness, and uh, as for education, like we cannot completely depend on education to improve our civic sense. As education, for some people might think that when we talk about education, we just means it just means to gain good graces or You have to earn a good degree, but we should not limit education to at that point. But education should be such that it integrates some value which will help us shape to be a better person, and the human nature should be integrated with the good values, responsibility, and also who respects diversity. And in school and colleges, we serve as a hub of education, uh, wherein we are taught social science and environmental studies, which are structured in such a way which teaches us such value. But I think civic sense is some sort of practical thing which cannot be just taught verbally or in a written format, but it has to be experienced by every individual. And also for civic sense, I remember there was an advertisement earlier there was an advertisement regarding that regarding this that whenever people used to litter anyway, they were offered a garland of I don't remember specifically. Maybe it was of shoes and slippers, and it was offered to them because they had littered and done some unethical things. So these non-civic senses are not very cool, but something to which we should put some attention and do something for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jigyasa. That was our last speaker. I think you summed up really well when it comes to like learning social values, learning such a huge responsibility of civic responsibility on our shoulders as citizens. Because at the end of the day, it is on our shoulders to create an environment that we desire. Like we are the players in this. Like the system is not happening to us. We are the system, if you think about it. So yeah, to basically sum up, I think we got a very holistic, like always. Like I love that, everyone here has their own personal interest, very interesting takes on like the very same topic. And it's like so interesting how everybody's mind works. So I think to sum up, we've covered that in order to achieve that social responsibility, first of all, we need to realize the need for it. And I think most of us do, but the need for action, like which was talked about, like I think someone mentioned, like there is awareness but there is not action. So we need to bridge that gap. So we need to first of all realize that where can, like how can that action come. So we've noticed that first of all, yes, education at very like the very primary level, that is where we need to build the core foundations. Then we need to realize that social values, social responsibility can be learned through peers, through social interactions, and of course like discussions like this. And then it's also very important to be noted that in a country where our culture, that Athar mentioned, that where our entire history of like the freedom struggle was based on like the nationalist was the nationalist values and ideals were based on breaking rules so that we can get what we want. Those values are still here. So our culture does not necessarily align with just following certain rules, but we need to teach our youngsters that very culture for it to be very sustainable. So it needs to come from a multifaceted approach. And yes, that means having punishment, having fines if necessary, having social discussions if necessary, and holding each other responsible for like for social accountability, and holding our government responsible, and respecting our public spaces, public goods. And it's just like a very holistic thing. And yes, like I mentioned this earlier, civic sense is not something that you can point at. Like you cannot really quantify its progress, but it is something that can always be felt. It can be noticed. It can be experienced. That is what civic responsibility is. That is what civic sense is. And that is what social responsibility is. And that is just like this voluntary actions and voluntary feelings that can only be learned. and that can either be learned through policy, education, or experience. But it cannot be one or the other. It needs to be like a whole holistic approach. Um, all right. So, guys, can you please turn on your cameras for our, I would say, weekly policy Manthan picture, group picture. I'm going to call out names. Aparna, Madhuri, Anshika, Shivangi, I would love to see your faces. Mamansha, Tulsi, please, guys. Also, sorry, I muted myself. Just all right. I cannot take a screenshot. I don't know what's wrong with my laptop. Can somebody else do it, please? I've tried like thrice. Yeah, anybody, please.
Yeah, I've taken a screenshot.
Oh wait, no, we have to pause. Let's say cheese. 3,
Please
2,
say
1.
cheese. Okay, 3, 2, 1. No, I just don't. Wait, just give me a second.
Sure. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
okay. 3.
Ready?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I think I've taken, yeah.
Is it done? Maybe let me try. Oh, wait, I did it.
Yeah, even I've done it though.
Yeah, even I did it. All right, guys. And please remember what I said earlier. Please give us your views. What do you want to talk about? What is something that you feel extra passionate about? And we'll look into it. And I hope to see each one of you next week, Friday, 6 or 7 p.m. And yes, have a great weekend. Yeah, weekend. All right, guys. Thank you so much. All right. Did someone say anything? Oh, okay. All right, guys. Thank you for joining. Bye.